Hey there, this is Franklin, and you're listening to Who Asked Us? Deep thoughts, lighthearted conversations. Here, you'll listen along as we discuss our way through the Bible with a growing, rotating panel of guests, none of which claim to be experts on any of this. We hope you get just as much out of these conversations as we did having them. Thanks for listening.
Where are we?
It's 11 a.m. here on the East Coast. Let's crack open our Bud Lights. And, yeah.
Ooh,
there's no
10 a.m. here?
Kenneth, that should be an episode idea. We'll do a late night one. Everyone has like a little drink with them. We like get a little crazy, talk about some weird stuff. The Book of Enoch.
Put a little like fire crackling noise in the background, like we're all around a fire pit.
That'll be around Christmas. We should do one of those.
Ooh,
hot chocolate.
That's great. I love
Except
that.
Eugene is allergic to milk because he's weak.
Oh my god.
Oof.
We can't hear you.
Still
we can't hear you, Eugene.
You're still muted.
Yeah, there you go.
Who's stopping us from drinking now?
Right now?
Yeah.
I have a child that I have to take care of.
That's whose fault is that?
Let them learn young.
It's my fault. Yes.
Deadbeat.
Wait, do you have a kid yet, James?
Let them learn young that Daddy is not reliable.
Exactly.
When Daddy's recording his podcast.
Wait, James, do you have a kid or no?
No. I just got married last summer. So
You
I
got a
just
puppy,
moved
though.
over
Just
here.
because you got married last summer doesn't mean you don't have a kid.
That's true. You're right.
Well, I have a question about that. So it only talks about when Adam and Eve, it only talks about when they have kids. So when it says like, now Adam knew Eve, his wife, I'm like, I know what that means.
That's
well.
Bible speak for getting it down.
Mm-hmm. So it only talks about them having sex and having a kid when it's talking about all of the males, I noticed. So like it never talks about like, for example, it says Cain eventually takes a wife, right? But it doesn't say like Adam knew Eve and they came up with Cain's wife. You know what I mean? So I know everyone always says like, oh man, it's obviously they're populating the earth. But I'm curious, is it all within Adam and Eve's lineage? You know what I mean? I know it seems like a dumb question at first.
I think it's a fair question. I think that the way it's worded, I always interpret it, like, when actually reading it, as there must have been other people around. There must have been other people around that Adam and Eve then, became familiar with, right? And then their children became familiar with. So I don't think it was like this. I don't think it was an incestuous kind of like, one couple then like populating the entire earth.
Well, but when you say there must have been, why do you?
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that there.
That is a great question. So let me see if I can find the line here. I think it talks about Cain first, right? Like after Cain killed Abel. Let's see here. Yeah, it just says Cain, verse 14 in chapter 4 of Genesis. Cain then left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain had relations with his wife, and she conceived of Enoch, and so on. And so it is weird. It's kind of jarring that it's just like, wait, like this, his wife, like we haven't heard anybody else mentioned except Adam, Eve, Cain and Abel, right? And like any other humans. So I take that as the land of Nod was already established, and there was people there. That's the only way I can imagine that. But other than that, that's how I always interpreted it. What do you guys think?
It's fair. Sorry to jump in right away, but like, it's fair to think like, okay, maybe there were people outside of the Garden of Eden. Maybe Adam and Eve were the people he created in the Garden of Eden, and that obviously makes like now we have to go. Okay, why were certain people made in the Garden of Eden and certain people not in the Garden of Eden? And we could talk about that if that's something that we think.
I don't want to jump into that area because I'm not too familiar with that. So I'm only going to do the assigned readings unless you need me to read the Bible cover to cover. But my understanding,
why would you read more than just what we
very
make you read?
Rudimentary. That's what I'm. You know what? I hate you.
Don't listen to the Franklin. I don't know what he's saying.
My understanding of it is very rudimentary. So then when you start to speak of things outside of that, I'm going to get a bit lost. Please have at it, but don't expect too much from me.
We don't expect anything from you.
So
no, ask questions. I mean, that's
I'm going to. So even just reading Genesis 4, my understanding of it is still really basic, and I'm reading it for what the text is, and not for understanding belief and guidance or anything like that. So as I'm reading it as what the text is just saying, it's basically Cain grew fruit, gave it to God. Abel gave him livestock. God loved that even more than the fruit. Cain hated that. killed his brother, and then left God's presence, which doesn't make sense to me because God oversees everything. So how did you leave the presence of God unless God can only see, unless his views are limited? And when I say views, I mean physical view. And then he just decided to populate the earth and live for 900 years. So that is just not, it's not making sense to me as much as it is. So I'm going to have more questions than I'm going to have answers.
Yeah, I appreciate that. For me, when it comes to like the what you guys are talking about, I don't think. So I'm trying to get the name. James, you brought up like, oh, like, you know, who are these other people? Or I think that was Franklin. But whether, I guess my thing is I don't know, right? I don't know, and I also don't think it matters, right? If you're taking it from a purely scientific point of view, every single population needs to have some sort of incestuous thing, or else you couldn't have creation, right? You couldn't have people exist or any animal species exist. Like, that's just normal in nature. When you start off a brand new population, how else are you going to have more kids, right? If we evolved from single-cell organisms, then something evolved and has sex with what? Like, that's just the way the world works naturally, scientifically.
Sure.
So if the Bible is saying the same thing, I'm not like, oh no, now the Bible's realistic. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think that's not what we're saying, though, Ken. I mean, like, I'm more looking at it as these last couple of chapters, I've realized, like, wow, the things that the Bible says, there's not much, like, it doesn't seem like there's filler, you know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh, every sentence is really like, especially in this version, it seems like it's very much like trying to just be a legitimate translation rather than like, you know, like I forget what the other version of that we kind of talked about last week.
The New Living Translation, I think.
Yeah.
Tries to like modernize it a bit.
Yeah, and like give you more context, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas, so I'm just looking at it and going, it's interesting that the Bible is saying, you know, Adam knew Eve and they created Cain. And again, she bore his brother Abel, but it never says, and they also bore this many kids, or like or even just saying they bore, you know, 9 more brothers and sisters of Cain and Abel. Like, it doesn't reference that at all. So I'm just looking at that and saying, are we filling in that it must be, you know what I mean? Like, are we kind of filling in then, oh, it must be Cain and Abel's brothers and sisters that are also helping populate the earth or whatever? Or is it not mentioned because Cain's wife, let's say, is not a daughter of Adam and Eve? I just think it's interesting to see that left out.
The way it sounds to me, it sounds like it's insinuated. So when they say, you know, Cain left God's presence and then he married and then his son had 2 wives. Well, first of all, Cain had several children and then one of his sons had 2 wives and then they continued to bear children. And that's just letting you know, look, that's a lot of people already right there in that one just group of 6 people, right? And so now when you keep adding and adding and adding, I think it's just insinuated that they are also populating the earth versus just assuming, you know.
Yeah, maybe. That's why I just find it interesting. I don't think we're going to find the answer to it. I just thought it was more like interesting to kind of bring up. It's like, it's not specified. And I just thought that is interesting because I think both the things that the Bible says and what it doesn't say. There was something I think in episode 1 where I was like, well, that means this, and Ken and Natasha in that episode were like, it doesn't say that. Where does it say that? I was like, oh, it is never mentioned like that. That's an assumption we made. So I guess I'm just trying to kind of on the lookout of like, where did these other people come from? It doesn't say they came from them, and I think that's just kind of worth noting, you know.
So that is a good point that James brought up. Then, like that. You know, Adam and Eve weren't the only people that existed. There were other people around that they might have been familiar with. I'd never thought about that until you said it today.
So, Ken, I have let me just lay out my kind of like view of human history from like maybe an anthropological perspective, and how I feel, whatever I believe, it lines up with the Bible. So, I'm gonna mess some details up here, but the in anthropology, there is a idea that every, couple 100,000 years we as humans have DNA, but we also have mitochondrial DNA, so mDNA. And that evolves on a bit more of a regular basis, if I'm to understand it correctly. Ken, you're nodding your head, so I'm, if I'm messing something up, let me know. And so about, I think, roughly, 250, 300,000 years ago in geological time, humans in Africa there was relative drought. So there was a small population of humans somewhere in Africa. And that meant that the population of whatever tribe of humans that was very small. And so that means that when the mitochondrial DNA of a person were to evolve, then that gene could then be passed on relatively quickly through a small population of people. And it's passed on through the mother's genes. So in anthropology, I'm not an anthropologist. I just keep on using that term because I learned this in an anthropology class, 10 years ago. The first human that would have been considered a Homo sapien from DNA and mDNA perspectives would be considered mitochondrial Eve, because it would have to have been a woman. And so mitochondrial Eve could have then mated with somebody that didn't have the same mDNA mutation that made her a Homo sapien, but then would have passed it down to the kids, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how I look at it. And then there's also some people think the same thing happened with Neanderthals when Homo sapiens were around, more probably in Africa at the time, and then Neanderthals were more in kind of Europe or Asia, right? Like that kind of landmass area at the time. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals could have mated. And then, there's some studies that say humans have 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. That's been contested. I'm not an expert in that by any measure, so I have no idea. But the idea is that there could have been this kind of mixing of genes where we weren't quite speciated, we were still able to mate, and then obviously make, what we are now, like some form of Homo sapiens.
So you're kind of saying Adam and Eve's lineage gave whatever side of that, and the outside of the Garden of Eden, if we're going to call them that, maybe that was the Neanderthals or whatever.
Right, exactly, yeah, or whatever was the closest relative to Homo sapiens, and then so then Homo sapiens were able to mate with those people, which were very close to Homo sapiens. Probably physically almost identical. That's kind of the way I look at it. Whether or not I have to refresh myself on a bunch of details, and it sounds like Ken, you know some of them. So, or if you have a perspective, please let us know.
I do. I mean, so the scientific or evolutionary scientific thought on this is obviously wide and varied and whatever. But one of the latest things I've heard, which I think is very well reasoned and very well evidenced, right? I mean, so we're all Homo sapien, which is a species of human, right? But there's a thought that there are other species of human. When I say species of human, as in you could still breed and make a child with this other thing, right?
Sure.
But they don't exist today, but did, for example, Neanderthals. But Neanderthals are relatively recent. The furthest we go back that could have that same type of breeding capacity and also have the brain capacity to be able to do certain things that certain sentient life would have to do is a species called Homo heidelbergensis. And this one is about 500,000 years ago. So some people have reasoned, well, this is the only creature within evolutionary history that one is, while a different species can still, I say while different species, which one is still can be considered human in its capacity for reasoning and thought and its biological compatibility. Does that make sense? And so some things were saying, well, the introduction of this type of species into nature could very well have been the first real humans, because technically they would be, because it would be first people in the evolutionary line that have the same capabilities that we do.
So it's that's kind of, because I do think obviously we're getting very much into like, were there more humans? Was there incest? This and that.
Science and
Well, and it's interesting because we're bringing all the science into what we've kind of all agreed. And I know, like, Eugene, you weren't here for that, but we kind of all agreed that like Genesis, at least the beginning, like half-ish of it, is more poetry rather than like a historical retelling. So it's like, I know we're trying to bring a lot of science to reason through this poetry, right? And this, isn't specifically that. And people might have a different argument for that. But I do think if it's going to be poetry, it shouldn't be so, I wouldn't imagine that it could be. I shouldn't say it shouldn't be so different that it doesn't make sense. So like that does make a lot of sense to me. The idea of like maybe one of these, I hesitate to call them breeds of human because that just sounds really like
Bill, that's the true form of racism, to be honest. Like when you're saying like you can't get any more racist than that.
No. But I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about like, so what would you call the difference between if they can mate, they are not a different species then, correct?
I believe that's true. Yeah.
That's
so to be
true.
a different species,
so what would you call the
wouldn't
difference
be able to-
between Neanderthal,
They are different
Homo
species,
sapien?
actually. Well, because that's very strange because it's not black and white with these things, especially when it comes to evolution.
And I wasn't thinking that it was for a second. I want to make that very clear.
I'm just making sure you're not yeah, you can't see color. No, I get it. It's a spectrum, and that's how you can have this weird blurring or this weird that's how you can have this blurring of things and merging of things. I really don't think it's like all of a sudden I don't think you can delineate certain things just like that. Like, this one cannot necessarily like this blur between species is always a blur, and that's kind of what it is.
I get what you're saying. I mean, at the end of the day, like all of these categories are man-made categories, right? So they all have exceptions. Yeah, I get it. But I guess my point is that looking at this and seeing the idea of like, it doesn't say that Cain's wife came from Adam and Eve, and it's just interesting to see that.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it doesn't. It doesn't, and I think. So the reason why I bring up like science and stuff is I treat it as science is true for what we can understand, and the Bible is true for what it's trying to say. And I'm just saying, do they necessarily contradict one another? Or is it just up for interpretation? Because science is up for interpretation. That's the whole point about science. Like if you don't, unless you continually challenge what you believe and then try to prove it and reason with it.
It's almost science is up for your interpretation, but the Bible is up to your discernation. You're trying to, because you're trying to dig through and find out what's true in the Bible. You're not like, it's not, I know science is trying to do the same thing.
But that's what science is as well.
I know, but I guess I'm saying.
Exactly. So what I'm saying, what I'm saying though is, with the Bible is written for a purpose and intent. It's using different things, and it's just kind of coming to an actual point. Like there's a moral to the story, right? Where in science, there's no moral to the story. You're just trying to figure out what happened. Exactly. And because there's a moral to the story, and that's the point of the Bible, read the Bible, I'm like, okay, people like 3,000, 6,000, 4,000 years ago were telling each other these stories. This is what they believed, and there's a moral to the story, and it's grounded. And if it's like, if it's true, if it comes from God, then it's grounded in some sense of reality. But it's also not a textbook. It's not trying to be a textbook. It's trying to be a moral. Right?
And I guess that's kind of the part. Oh, I'm sorry.
So with that, I'm looking at, when I'm bringing up these scientific things, I'm just saying like, here's how we know the world works, and here's how we know the moral that it's trying to be told to us through these stories. Can they both be true? Can both morals of this and what we know about science be true or not? I think that's kind of where I'm getting at.
Sure. I guess I'm just looking at it as like, you said like, and we know the morals we're trying to get from this, right? Well, I don't think we specifically do know all of the, I'll say, points that the Bible's trying to give us, right? And that's why I'm trying to say like, cool, is this something that we have to look at, or is it not, right? Because like, for example, like you could look at this and say like, oh, so incest is allowed according to the Bible because that's how we were created to do it. We should all be doing incest. And I'm not saying I agree with that. Calling your siblings, telling on you. But like, I'm not saying I don't believe it's saying that. I just think I look at that and I go, okay, because if it is implied incest, that's just something to talk about. I don't know if it matters or not. So that's why I'm like, does that make sense?
That makes sense. I mean, if it is, that's just part of the story.
Those are the things that are weird, though. I think it goes back to the understanding of what you mean by what Franklin means by poetry, right? And it also goes back to us trying to figure out if science is more for our understanding, if the Bible's for our understanding. I think whether or not there is a moral to the story, I don't think the moral. This is going to sound crazy. I don't think it matters that there's a moral to the story if we are taking the Bible for what we take it for versus what they intended for us to take it for. So if we're reading it as text and reading it as perspectives of other people and trying to understand why they felt that way, why they thought that way, why they thought that's the message they were getting from the Lord, we don't necessarily have to dissect it knowing that, all right, we're supposed to get out of it what we're supposed to get out of it, what they intended for us to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look at it as we look at science, where it's like, okay, so why, right? Why did you feel the need? Why is it right to kill your brother because you weren't happy that God didn't like that you brought him fruit versus livestock? Why is it okay to have incest? Why was that the way to breed and have and bear more children, was to do it incestually, right? So it also goes back to what Franklin meant by poetry, where it's everything in that book cannot be true, where it's saying that people lived for 900 years. Like someone who lived for 900 years, it fundamentally does not make sense.
Well, and I think it's fair to say, even like, you're making me think that maybe it's not about, hey, the incest. It's more about just showing, hey, here are these problems that Adam and Eve had and Cain and Abel had. And these are because you are all human beings connected to them. You all deal with the same thing. It's like, it's innate to you too. So it's like, if we're looking at it that way, it's like, yes, I'm harping on the method in which they're showing us that by saying, oh, incest is implied, but maybe the implication, the takeaway that's supposed to be there is, yeah, we all came from these people. That's why we all inherited the issues that they bring. You know what I mean? Like original sin and, like the jealousy of Cain.
What I think I'm saying is more that you don't, not to diminish the religion. It's, you can look at the text aside from the moral and dissect the text versus
I think that's what I'm doing.
Taking away what the moral of the story is. And I think you are allowed to do that. I think we should be allowed to do that.
Yeah, I think in this point now, though, we're reading and we're talking about, okay, was there incest in this, right? But did the people who wrote it and were the original audience intended, I mean, this was made like 5,000 years ago or something like that, right? It's made sometime before, during the Egypt was an empire, so it's like 3,000 years before, like 5,000, 4,000 years ago, right? Okay, those people, would they have listened to this story and start thinking about incest?
Or are they more thinking about, for example,
they're just brush it on the rug because it's just a story. They hear stories all the time. Maybe they're not thinking about incest.
But that's
why
we're
kind of reading in a controversy that's like kind of out of place, right? There are controversial things that are said in here, right? Like what Eugene said, like, Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. What does that even mean? But about like them, their wives being their sisters or cousins or whatever it is, like, that's not even like mentioned at all. Like, and I know there's other places in the Bible where those are explicitly mentioned as like things. So it's kind of like,
I definitely agree where it's like, so we're obviously putting a lens of 2025 on this, right? Where it's like, where even probably a few hundred years ago, it was not like considered culturally abnormal to marry your cousin, for example, and that's cousins. And so going back further, I think it's interesting when you think of it, okay, if the intended audience was somebody from 5,000 years ago, yeah, it probably wasn't common to marry your sister, but it probably happened, or something like that. So it maybe just wasn't as big of a concern, maybe. And like, I know I've also heard like some type of like, heard of some types of studies that say like, if you marry somebody that's the same like skin color as you, chances are you're probably more related than you think. Just like, if you're both from the same European ancestry or the same, South American ancestry or something like that, it's like chances are your family or ancestry paths probably crossed in the past as well. So yeah, so I wonder if that's kind of like, if I put my mind in the head of somebody in Egypt, 5,000 years ago reading this, I'd been like, oh yeah, I know like 10 people that married their sister, like, I don't know, like, who cares? So, but I don't know. That's a total guess.
No, that's a fair point.
But that is an interesting kind of like lens to look at it through. So that's so kind of to Eugene's point though, so you said we can dissect the text and we can keep the moral in mind, or I guess like keep like look at just the text and look at the text with the moral, like through the lens, I guess, of like religion, that as we Christianity as we understand it. So when you say you're looking at the text or just trying to read the text, how much do you think you're thinking of it in the time that it was written? I guess it's kind of hard not to, in a sense, because it's one of the oldest things that's like we still have, right? Like, written text of. So yeah. So how much do you go back and forth? You're like, okay, this makes sense now, or did this make sense 5,000 years ago, or what did it mean 5,000 years ago?
It's a huge mix of, honestly, reading the text, I'm not thinking of it at the time that it's written. Not as much as I probably should. So when I'm reading it, I'm like, it just doesn't make sense, right? Versus, oh, you know what? This was written for a specific audience, and it's kind of just translated to this years and years and years later. So that's just where my understanding of it came from, where it's, oh, that does make more sense now that you mention it, that this was written a long time ago.
What's so weird is sometimes when I'm reading it, I'm like, it reads, and I'll admit sometimes I do read the New Living Translation, which is like more of a modernization translation of it, but it reads almost like a modern book. And like I'm always like, it's always surprising where it's like it's also very obvious. It's like, wow, this is the inspiration for so many stories that I've heard throughout my life, whether it's movies or books or whatever. And so but that almost like helps me in a weird way remember that it's so old, because it feels like it should be older, but at the same time it feels modern.
I'm with you there, but I think it's just because this is still, like, for example, when we get to Exodus, right, and it's talking about people in Egypt in a setting that we have a lot of prior knowledge that we bring to, it's going to seem older, whereas this seems like, it doesn't seem like it's modern in that this is happening right now. It seems that it's modern in that, like, I assume you mean that it could have been written right now, right?
Yeah, like almost like stylistically even, where like it's like just the language that's used and how, that's kind of what I mean. Well, but that's a good point where it's like there's nothing to really date it. It's not saying they're like, oh, they were building the pyramids, right?
Well, for example, the one spot where it does feel old all of a sudden to me is towards the end, when all of a sudden it was, and they were the people that live in tents, which we'll get to when we get to it. But like that was the first time when I was like, oh, I feel like I have more of a setting all of a sudden, and it felt old out of nowhere. It felt like but right now I think it's just it feels more modern because that's
interesting.
Well, we're also like, I assume, coming from the idea of like there's some universal truths in here, and so it's still relevant to us today, and there's no setting to make it feel old at the moment.
So, kind of just moving a little forward here. There's there are some questions that kind of like come up, but I think there are also some things that aren't really too hard to comprehend, right? So, I think Eugene, you brought this up. Cain brings one sort of offering to God, and it's like some fruits. And then Abel, his brother, brings another type of offering, and that's like the firstborn of his flock, right? Which already, it just sounds a little, it sounds different, right? Cain, literally, it just says Cain brings fruit.
Fruit of the ground.
And no other type
specific.
Fruit of the ground. No other type of adjective to it. He brings fruit of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. And Abel brings the firstborn of his flock, which is already like a different quality. Because you didn't say like, and Abel just brought some animals. No, like Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, which is also like, that's a little bit more weighty. So I'm like, okay, that's strange.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Can I?
What's up?
Now I have another. Now I'm more curious.
Go ahead.
Fruits of the ground doesn't necessarily mean fruits. Because fruits of your labor just means anything that you gotten out of the work that you put in. So
I think
fruits of the ground could be anything that has grown. I was thinking specifically fruit. I was thinking
me too.
Grapes, apples, pears, anything that can grow from the ground versus whatever he put the work into growing, plants, anything was given to the Lord. And
I think
Abel, the first of his flock, could have either met his children or livestock. I was thinking livestock just because I don't think he would give him, I mean, not think, because it happened before, where it just made more sense to me that it was fruit versus an animal. And I'm thinking modern day where it's carnivores and herbivores, where someone's giving fruit, someone's giving meat. He could have given anything that grew from the ground, and then Abel could have given him a kid. He could have given him livestock.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is kind of where we get like we're translating a translation, right?
Hmm.
The phrase "fruit of the ground" really just means like an actual fruit.
Okay.
It means the labor of the ground, which is plants and trees and
Well, that's
fruits and
why
stuff
I
like
know
that. Yeah.
that last chapter it did say like, and I know Eugene, you weren't here for this specifically, but it says like, all right, now you're going to go out into the world and to be able to get food, it's not just going to be in the Garden of Eden anymore. You have to work the ground to cultivate the food to sustain you. So it is consistent in that way. And I also think just the fact that it also tells you like Abel was a keeper of sheep and Cain was a worker of the ground. It's like, okay, so Abel was some type of shepherd, right? And Cain was growing the food. Those were their jobs in this world. And so, but that kind of leads me to Ken, like, I get what you're saying. It is totally phrased in a way where it's like an offering of the fruit of the ground. And Abel also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. Like it sounds so much better. But I don't know what, like, it looks like, yes, the way that it's phrased, obviously, it sounds like he specifically brought the firstborn of his flock. But it sounds like they brought offerings of which they had to offer. You know what I mean? Which is interesting.
Yeah,
and
they did.
Well, and so my question is, I've always heard that God rejected Cain's offering, and that's not said in here, or at least in the version that I'm reading. It just says
that's not what I read either.
Yeah, it didn't say he rejected it. He
Yeah,
just said,
so I think it's important to note, like, okay, they gave offerings. It just so happened that for whatever reason, God decided to reward Abel for what he offered. It doesn't mean Cain was wrong for what he offered and that he should not keep offering. So I don't think it's as much as like Cain's offer wasn't good enough. I think in just for whatever reason,
it wasn't good enough though. It sounds so when I kept reading it was like God kept saying your offerings should get better if my understanding is correct.
I didn't say that.
Like,
it's
like
where does it say that exactly? Because I want to look at that.
In my mind it says, God says he doesn't say like he should get angry. He just says, well, Cain gets angry because Abel gets some sort of regard from God and he doesn't. And then in chapter 4 verse 6, basically God says to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? Like, why are you upset? If you do well, will you not be accepted? Which is kind of like God saying like, hey, don't be angry if you just do better. I think that's kind of where Eugene's getting it from. If you do better, I'm going to reward you too, right? Like that's...
Or even if you just keep doing good, you will be rewarded. Like, it sounds like, okay, for some reason you weren't rewarded right now. And I think we could see that, if we're also looking at how this affects our day-to-day, right? I know plenty of people where they go, I do the right thing. Like, why is my life hard? And I see all these people that are doing what I deem to be the wrong thing or maybe just as good or whatever. Why are they rewarded and I'm not? And I think it's trying to show like, don't worry about them. You worry about you and your offerings.
I think that's kind of what's happening. And so far, I think this, it makes sense so far to me up to this point.
Yeah, I really like that. So that's you guys just talking about that made me really just come to terms with the fact that I have always thought God rejected Cain's offering. But it doesn't say that anywhere. It just says he looked with favor. Or at least I'm reading the New American Bible, which is the Catholic version that you normally have in like a Catholic mass. And he says so. The Lord looked with favor upon Abel's offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not. And then, like, he didn't say he did, like, punished Cain or rejected Cain, right? Or rejected the offering even. He just didn't look with favor upon it. That is so, and like, that's fascinating. And like, I read these words, and like, I just didn't like that didn't click.
So why so extreme? I'm sorry. Did you have more to say, James?
Well, no. My point is that's actually exactly what I was going to get to. So it's like Cain was so upset by this. Mm-hmm. But exactly what Ken and Franklin... Right, yeah, exactly. What Ken and Franklin were just saying was, like, God gave him a path. He's like, don't worry about... he's like, keep on doing what you're doing, or whatever. Keep on working harder, and things will work out. Like, he didn't say... There's no reason for him to... I shouldn't say there's no reason. I understand the reason why Cain would be mad at Abel. But there's no... like, that shouldn't distract... Like, the moral of the story, if I had to, like, extract it would be there's no reason to be distracted by somebody else's success or somebody else's good fortune, whatever it may be.
That's a good take on that.
So that's kind of I think what you were getting at, Gene, right? Where it's like why was Cain then so upset, right? It's like I think we've all been in that situation where, somebody in your life is succeeding and you're not, and you feel like you're working just as hard, or harder, or whatever.
That's not how I looked at that.
No, and that's, now that you're
like
saying that,
I do like that. Right?
the idea too of like, so, what does the Lord say after that, right? He says, if you do well, you will, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. And so I think, like, looking at this whole situation now, like hearing what you guys have to say. So I think God didn't do anything unfair or unjust to Cain, right? He just did not specifically reward him at that moment for whatever reason. That's not the point. He just needs to keep worrying about, are you doing what you deem is good? And, are you offering what you can to the Lord? Are you showing worship to him? Then keep doing that. Don't worry about what other people are getting for it, right? But instead, Cain did not do well, right? And he was jealous. And so sin was crouching at the door waiting to pounce. And it does, right? If sin's desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it, he didn't rule over it. He lost that battle. And so now things start to really get worse. It came from, hey, this really wasn't a big deal, but because Cain was jealous, like we all feel, and he allowed that jealousy to win over him, look how quickly he was to sin by killing Abel. Look how quickly he was to sin by lying to God. I thought it was interesting when God says, where is Abel, your brother? It's another question that God's asking as if he didn't already know.
Am I my brother's keeper? Like, why would I know where he is?
But not only that, God knew the answer to that. And earlier when he was asking, what have you guys done in the garden when they ate of the fruit of the tree?
The previous chapter, right? Was that chapter 3?
I think so.
Yeah.
So it's interesting seeing God ask these questions like a good parent, where he knows the answer, but he's going, you should tell me.
That's exactly what I took from that.
Yeah, and to go even further, so because Cain is falling at this point, sin is ruling over him, and he just keeps making worse and worse mistakes. So he kills his brother, lies to God's face about it, and then when there's a just punishment put on him, is not accepting of his punishment, is going, what is happening to me? You know what I mean? Why are you doing this to me? This isn't fair. I'm going to be killed. I won't be accepted in this world. So it's just interesting now that we're thinking about it, like from the pinpoint of Cain, his offering wasn't rejected by God, but just because he was jealous, look at the turmoil that came and the turmoil that kept coming.
Just a little pushback. What James said actually shifted my entire perspective on it, and now I can connect this with real life now. And he wasn't just rejected, he was tested, and being tested like that isn't fun. Like, if you keep saying, look, if you keep doing what's right, will you not be accepted? Where you're like, well, I'm giving you something now, and you're rewarding the other person for doing something, and you're just telling me to keep doing the thing I'm doing, and I'm not seeing anything from it other than you just saying, well, just keep doing that. So just because you didn't say, I don't want what you're giving me, that doesn't mean I feel accepted when someone else is getting rewarded. So then he's just like, hey, Cain, let's go take a walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then he's like,
come with me. Let's go to the field real quick. And then he just kind of just 86 him. And then he's just like, all right, cool.
So, I mean, what I do like about, actually, I'm reading this again for like the 20,000th time, and it's like, oh, this is interesting. But
I love how that changes every time you read it. It's a different perspective every time. And it kind of adds to what Franklin was saying about the poetry, where it's so extreme. Did he really kill him, or is that just part of the story, just to show you that you can commit sin from not being from
exactly
just reading what we're reading right here.
I like the way in this God phrases it. He's like, well, if you don't do well, right? So one, like, why are you angry? Why are you upset? Like, if you do well, won't you be accepted? But if you do not do well, right, then sin is crouching at the door. So he makes this type of thing like something separate from you, because he even says its desire is contrary to you, or its desire is to have you, or whatever. So he's saying like that kind of evil inside of you is not you, right? Like, it's literally not like you really don't want to kill your brother, right? But you're just so upset you're letting this move you, right? And it kind of introduces, and I think that kind of gets to kind of like the point of this episode, though. Like, it introduces like, I think, and God ends this by like, but you must rule over it, right? Like, there is something inside you that kind of wants to just like do things and be upset and probably kill your brother, but like, that's not something that should control you. You should kind of like master your emotions, master yourself, because you are supposed to be a master of yourself, right? So you gotta be you gotta be careful, right? Like if you do well, you'll be accepted. If you don't do well, then you won't be, maybe you won't get the reward, but you still
But
now
what's
have
well?
Exactly, right? So like
That's a great. I'm sorry. Can I jump into that really quick?
Well, let me just
Go ahead.
finish it.
Okay, fine. You can tell me no. That's why I asked.
He's like, if you do well, you'll be accepted. What is well? We'll figure that out in a second. If you don't do well, okay, you won't get the reward, but you have to be mindful now because now there's something inside you that's going to try to take over you, right? Like if you run the race and you win, you'll get the first place medal. If you don't win, if you don't do well, if you don't get the first place medal, you may have something now that's coming after you that's trying to control you of jealousy or anger or whatever that you have to take control of, right? And you may not always win. I think that's kind of another point too. Like you may not always do well, but even if you don't do well, you now have to deal with this sin creature that's trying to control you and get you angry or ruin your life in many different ways. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's anger, maybe it's hatred, whatever. That's going to come if you're not doing well in whatever you're doing.
I totally agree. And I think going back to, we're talking about what is well. So we look back, right? So Cain and Abel are brothers, right? And it does. So I think what it's trying to tell you is these are two generally the same people, right? They're not one is from better or from worse. They're generally the same people. They take different paths, right? So I think even the way that Abel's offering is portrayed, like we were talking about before, it sounds like the better offering. However, I don't think it's Cain's fault at the moment that his offering is not the same as Abel's. He's offering what he had, fruit of the ground. That's all I got. You know what I mean? Whether it's the first fruit or the last fruit, it's fruit of the ground. I'm giving you part of what I'm able to harvest. Whereas, Abel's offering, it's just by the nature of it, it sounds like it is a better offering, right? And so I look at that and I go, in terms of what is well, it's God's place to determine that. And I think the understanding is Cain, if you keep doing what you're doing, you know what I mean? You'll get there. You're just not able to offer what Abel's able to offer right now. And you know what I mean? And for whatever reason, but that doesn't make your offering less than good. Keep offering, and you'll get to a point where your offering is rewarded or whatever.
Is he saying that though?
I don't think he is though. I don't think
so? It sounds like he's saying just keep doing what is right, and you'll be. He's saying
that's what I.
Yeah, if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll be accepted. He's not saying what
that's
he's
what
doing
I'm saying.
Is right, and he's not saying what he's doing is the right thing. All he knows is what he's. So if he's like, look, if I continue to harvest the soil and offer you what I have and I don't get rewarded for it, how do I even know this is what I'm supposed to be doing? The same way Ken was talking about that race, where it's if I keep running a race and I'm not getting anything out of it, there's going to be something. What I don't even think jealousy would cross my mind. It would be, why am I doing this then? I'm not getting anything out of this, but then I see other people getting something out of it. They're getting the physique. They're getting the, they're not.
They're getting the medals. They're getting accolades.
They're getting the accolades. They're getting the stamina. They're benefiting from this. I'm just doing this thing, and why? I'm watching someone so close to me, my brother, get rewarded for what he's offering, and what he's offering is better because this is what he knows how to do. I'm giving you something from what I know how to do, and I'm not getting anything out of it. So why would I keep doing this?
Yeah, and I think
I get that.
I think that's where I agree with you, Eugene, because I don't think God is saying in this. He's not saying, "Oh, keep on doing what you're doing, and then I'll reward you at some point." He didn't say that at all. He says. He's just putting he's saying, why are you mad? Why are you angry? If you do well, you're gonna get a prize, right?
Well, you know why he's mad.
Yeah, exactly. And if you and if you don't do well, right? And he's not saying you will do well. He said, if you don't do well, just deal with your sin because it's gonna destroy you. That's all God. He's not saying, hey, if you keep on sending your offerings, I'm gonna accept it. He didn't say that at all. And I think some people getting a moral of a story type of thing.
Yeah, go for it.
It's just like in real life, right? Like you may try as hard as you can and do whatever you can, and you'll never make it into Hollywood or never make it into your job, never get that. Someone else who came in after you may get the promotion before you did, whatever, and you did the best that you could. But someone else who was judging whether or not they got the promotion chose someone else before you. All right, so if you did well, maybe they'll choose you. If you don't do well, what did God didn't say, well, keep on going. No, he didn't say that. He's like, if you don't do well, then you're going to have to contend with that. You're gonna have to contend with the
Mm.
consequences of that. And I'm just telling you, like, that thing that you're gonna have to contend with, I'm calling sin. It wants to control you, and you
actually,
have to master it.
I'm sorry, Ken. What he's doing now could also not be well. So because
Oh, well, that
he's
too. Yeah.
because he's offering
Mhm.
what he has, which is the fruit, him harvesting within himself that jealousy and that anger towards Cain could be the thing that he's getting out of not doing well. It doesn't say anything anywhere that Cain feels anything towards Abel. Cain's not feeling jealousy. Cain's not
No,
feeling
Cain is
any
the
kind of
one that is
animosity.
feeling jealousy.
I'm sorry, Abel's not feeling
Yeah.
animosity and anger and
Mhm.
jealousy. That could be the punishment for not doing well, whereas you're going to feel these things towards your brother. And that's not a healthy way to live.
I see
Yeah.
what you're saying, but I guess I look at it as I get what you're saying about like Hollywood, right? And like the idea of like, okay, maybe people won't, but I don't think this is specifically talking about other people. I don't think that's the moral of the story. I think it's the moral of the story is being accepted by God and being blessed by God and being rewarded in the end by God, right?
Yeah.
I guess I look at it and I say, when I read like, if you do well, then you'll be accepted. It doesn't say that you will be, what does it say earlier? What's the word that it uses? That I'll have regard for your offering, whatever that means. Maybe Abel got some type of reward for the offering, but it says if you do well, you will be accepted. That's it. Like, so for example, maybe you're not being blessed in your life, but you will be accepted at the end and you will be returned into my arms, right? Versus if you do not do well, sin is crouching at your door. So if I look at him being someone who is farming the land, I don't see that job as something where he's not doing well, right? It's a necessary job, right? It's just maybe he's not going to have all these. Yeah, I think God says you're going to have to go to the world until the land.
The job itself is. It's
I
not
think
like
it's
the job. They didn't offer their jobs.
No. Hold on. I'm saying basically like, so Cain is bringing what he can. He does not have sheep because of what his life circumstances are, where his job is this. Not that it happened to him, but because this is his job, this is what he can offer. So it's almost like saying, this is going to sound really, just hear me out. It's like when somebody goes, oh, I'm a custodian, so I'm not going to be rich and wealthy and famous. It's like, okay, but like keep offering up your work and let it be good work that's fulfilling. You may not have all these blessings of wealth or whatever and this and that through your life, but like if you do good work and you're offering that to the Lord, in the end you will be accepted, right? Whereas if you're doing bad things, then the opposite. So I don't think Cain was not doing well. I think he just wasn't being rewarded for his offering in that moment. Whereas if he kept doing that, I think he was doing fine work that he would have been accepted by God in the end.
I think a couple
because he was offering his work to God still, and I think that's basically saying that's what I think he is that you're offering your work, you're doing it in service to the Lord. That's why I look at that and I'm saying I just don't see how that's a thing that he's doing that's inviting sin.
I think you have a point, and I'm curious as to what all of you guys' perspective are on this. So, no, now that I'm rereading this, nowhere in here does it say well. It doesn't say you need to do your job well. It just says,
what's your version?
Why are you
verse
angry?
7, I have well. I don't know
Same.
if
you do have that in there?
What version are you reading?
Verse 7, yeah.
So,
also make sure.
what am I reading?
Yeah, you might have a
I'm
synonym.
reading.
I'm curious.
I might have a synonym. I'm reading it. I'm just reading from Bible Gateway.
Yeah,
that could be the reason why.
No, just read verse 7 so we know what it says.
So I'm looking at 6. I don't see 7. I'm looking at 6 and I'm looking at 8 and then 9. So I'll start from
right
6.
in between.
No,
6 and 8.
Look, I don't see 7. Right? So I'll start at 6 and make my way to 8.
Okay, yeah,
we'll hear what I'm
okay,
looking at, right?
okay.
So it says, Then to the Lord Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? Oh, here's 7. Oh, God.
I was waiting for that.
The number's so tiny on here. The number's so tiny.
I was waiting for you to go, oh, there it is.
Yeah, so instead of well, it says right. So it says if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? So my thing is, what I think might be right or well, it also says, and this is interesting to me, it says, now Abel kept flocks. This is 4:3. This is 2, right? Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. And now on verse 3, in the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And 4, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. That means Cain has been working the soil, and over time just decided, you know what, I should offer some of this to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Abel decided, you know what? I'm going to give the first of my flock. I'm going to give the fattest offering I have to the Lord. Cain, it seems like, decided at some point, you know what? I should probably just give some of this stuff to God because
That's a fair
I'm doing some of the work.
interpretation, yeah.
And I think that's why he's not getting the same reward, because he didn't give as much as he could to the Lord as Abel did. As Abel did.
I agree with.
Hear you. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I agree with that, Eugene. I think that's, if we're trying to read what the text is trying to say, I think it's trying to make that clear. And that's what my original point was. Even the way it describes the two, right?
Mhm.
It's trying to make it clear that Cain is bringing something, and then Abel's also bringing something of a certain quality. And I think that's what the story is trying to say. I think if you're 6,000 years ago and you're like, just sitting down in some steps in Egypt and you're hearing the story, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So Cain brought the fruits, but then Abel brings like the best, the firstborn, the fattest, or the biggest ones. And I think that's what the story is trying to portray.
Well, that's what Father Mike Schmitz has said when he was going through this chapter in the Bible in a Year podcast. He kind of goes like, for example, he relates it to our lives currently as like prayer, right? So like, whereas if you were to change the offerings for like prayer and worship to the Lord, right? It's like Abel is prioritizing prayer in his day, right? He might not do it first when he wakes up. It's just the idea of like, I'm making sure that fits into my day before I make sure anything else fits into my day. Whereas Cain might be like, all right, I'll fit it in when I can. Oh, cool. I have some time here. Let me pray. Let me get that done. Where it's like, yes, they're both offering to the Lord, but it's like the idea of like, but are you prioritizing them with the best of what you can give them, like prime time in your day, if we're relating it to prayer, right? The first of the flock versus like, all right, out of my harvest, I'll give him some. I think that's totally fair. I don't disagree with that at all. What's it called? So I don't say I agree. I could see multiple things in there, and I don't think the messages I'm getting from both they are different, but neither of them I think are untrue, so I'm not upset by that. But I could totally see that in a relative day, like what is the moral, right? And the moral might be like, okay, when you're giving and you're giving worship to the Lord, are you giving the best of yourself to him, or are you just giving, trimmings from the side of where you could fit him in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think going back, if we're reading the text for the text, which I think we should do, whether or not it's been written so long ago, because it was written that way for a reason. Him not giving the Lord the biggest, ripest fruit that he could have given him, versus giving him the first livestock, the fattest, juiciest livestock you could have given. That's where the test also comes in.
Yeah, and it could have specified that.
Tested him, where it's like, all right, cool. You see, your brother gave me, the best of what he had, and you just decided to give me something along the way. You didn't think to give me the best. You just decided at some point, you know what? I'll give some of this to God. And Abel said, you know what? No, I was put here. I was able to create this thing. I'm going to give the best of what I can to him.
So that's okay. So that's very interesting. If you don't give the best, if you let's say just making it easier to talk about, Cain grew grapes or whatever, and he gave
choose grapes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, why not?
I was also thinking grapes, if it matters.
The cotton candy grapes. Oh,
ooh, yeah, they were the seedless grapes too. No pits. Yeah.
Back then, that wasn't even a thing.
But he gave the grapes with the seeds to God, and he's like, But what I'm trying to say is like, imagine he had a bunch of grapes, he harvested whatever, and there was some that were of, for whatever reason, higher quality, sweeter, larger, whatever it may be, than some others, and he just gave some of the maybe just not all of the good ones, for example. That I guess you can argue that necessarily means he was saving the good ones for himself.
Yeah, he was worshiping himself.
Yeah, putting his own wants and
and he didn't have a family yet at the time either. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, doesn't even have an excuse. He can't even save it for the kids.
It's not like he's saving the best for his family.
Yeah, exactly. And
I agree with that.
This is something I have to remind myself of a lot. If like the only reason Cain was able to even grow grapes is because God made him and the world. So it's like if you're withholding something because you think you deserve it, and it's like, well, who gave it to you? Who even allowed you to be able to do this in the first place?
And what's interesting? And we don't have to dive down this. It's just like, and it just made it pop in my head because I could see someone making the argument of like, well, I'm going to give myself the best ones because I made it, and then the best of the ones that I'm not taking, I'm going to give to God. And like, I could see someone being like, doesn't he have the right to those? And I would agree with you, James, where like, no, you can only grow these grapes because God allowed you to. And then you can make the argument of like, yeah, but I have to grow them because God's punishing me. I used to not even have to grow them. They were just on the trees.
Yeah.
But my answer to that is, you're only here growing them. You know, like you're lucky that I allow you to even still grow them.
I want to ask, then why create something that you think wants to give you back the best of, like that feels like a punishment where it's like, I'm going to make you because I feel like it. And then I want you to give me back everything that you can.
Yeah. So I think
You've hit this a couple times. Yeah.
I think in this point though, like that's really like not what's going on, right? Because it seems like Cain had the idea to bring something. And Abel also was like, yeah, I'll bring something too. They decide to bring it. And they bring it to God. And all it says is the Lord regarded what Abel did. And he's like, so basically it's like two of my students come. The one says, oh, look, I made this. I'm like, okay, this is beautiful. It has like sparkles and sprinkles, whatever. And then some other kid's like, look, I made this. It's like some stick figure on a piece of paper, right? And I'm like, oh, that's nice. But I'm really like giving praise to this other one, right?
It's like I'm a teacher and one kid gives me like a $20 Dunkin' gift card at Christmas and the other kid gives me a card and I don't even acknowledge the card and I go, thank you.
Yeah, it's basically like that. Like, I don't, it's like, it's God's up. God can regard whatever he wants. Like you're giving me something like what God regards is not the things. And I think that's the thing. Cause God can make a whole field of grapes if he wanted to, right? Like he doesn't care about the things. He cares about the effort and the gesture, right? And I think that's the whole point. So God doesn't really have a regard for this or that. He has a regard for Abel's offering. He doesn't really have a regard for Cain's offering. Cain gets upset. It's not
Does anyone, just really quick, does anybody have a different word than regard? I'm just curious before we
I
leave
have
it.
favor.
Okay.
He looked upon Abel. He looked with favor on Abel's offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not.
Because I just didn't really get what regard meant
5.
specifically, you know?
Yeah, favor. Yeah, it's
okay. I'm just curious.
Similar word, right? I think it's a fine translation.
Yeah.
But so God's like looking at it, it's like, I favor this one over that one. I don't think it's like God's making them and demanding them to give him something. It's just God makes it Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel decides, you know what? I want to give something to God, which is good. Like from Cain's point of view, he's like, I want to give this to God. And I give it to God, and God's like, doesn't care about what I really gave, but he cares about somebody else. I'm upset, I'm angry, and I'm sad. The phrase that says his face fell means he's sad. So he's sad and angry at the same time.
We should start saying that again, by the way, gentlemen. Why is your face fallen? I turn to my child? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I turn to my child? I make him call me father instead of dad? Are you kidding me?
You know what's crazy? Can I frame it like this? I think knowing us and how we grew up, since we've all known each other for a long time, we have all been fortunate enough to be in the situation I'm going to frame it as. But imagine being in a household. You're born, it's you and your brother, right? You and your brother are about 15, 16 years old enough to start working around the time that we started working, right? And what you're doing is, let's say I'm taking out the trash every so often. We're not being asked to do this. I'm taking out the trash. I'm doing household chores that I'm not being asked to do. Yet my brother has a job, and then he just decides to start contributing towards the mortgage, right? And our parents accept it. And then after our parents accepting it, they decide to reward him and say, you know what? You've been so grateful to us. You've been helping us pay off this mortgage. Here's a little something. We'll buy you a car. And then I look at them and I'm like, but I'm not thinking I deserve a new car because I've been doing the household chores.
But you at least deserve
But why is it that,
like you're at least thinking, at least can I have fair treatment?
Yeah,
it's not like
so
I expected
something.
this.
And their response is, well, if you keep doing what you're doing, we accept you. But yet my brother's paying the mortgage, which you never asked us to do, and you're just rewarding him. So I'm going to look at it as, do we owe you that? Like you chose to birth us. We did not choose to be here, and I'm still contributing the best way I can right now, and it's keeping this house in shape when you don't ask me to. Yet just because my brother's putting towards the mortgage, you're going to reward him all the time. He gets the bigger room. He gets the car. He gets this.
Mhm.
Like, it's not my duty to give that to you, my best.
Yeah, and then this, well,
And
I
I'm
guess
keeping
what
my
I'm
money
saying
for
is
myself.
this is not a thing about duty, though. This is about something extra. So in this scenario, you're saying this guy is doing his duty of taking care of the house and doing all that stuff. But I don't think that example is analogous to what's going on here, right?
To
Because
me,
they're
that's the soil.
I
To me, that's the
disagree.
fruit.
Well-
And then to me, the first of his livestock is paying
yeah,
part of the
but
mortgage.
them doing their job of being a shepherd or being a farmer, right, is the same thing as you doing your chores in the house, right? That's not something you're doing as a gift to God. Like it's as if, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That scenario doesn't really.
But someone else is
But-
getting rewarded, right? That's
well,
what
hold
I'm
on
saying.
a second, because I think we have a discrepancy here, and
Mhm.
like so Ken, you even said earlier that it's not that God doesn't expect us to give offerings to him. I don't know why I have this notion, and maybe it's for no reason, but I always thought that is part of our job is to show glory to God, right? And to worship God. Like I thought that's kind of part of the deal. And I've never even thought about why. We could talk about that, why I thought that, and
Yeah.
why God wants us to do that specifically.
I mean,
but I always thought that was part of our job is to.
I mean, where do you get that in the Bible, right? So,
I don't know. I haven't
yeah,
read the
I mean,
thing,
like
that's why I'm
you're
asking.
taught that by your church upbringing, just because they know that God accepts those things. He regards those things. So
Okay.
you're taught to do those things, but nowhere from Genesis, or at least from right now where we are, from Genesis 1 to Genesis 4, God never says you have to give me things.
So I guess what I'm saying is and maybe we don't have an answer so far, but like what is, even right here, actually, well, maybe he's saying it right now, right? Where is it? 7, the one that Eugene couldn't find. If you do well, will you not be accepted, right?
Yes.
So like, it sounds like you have to do well. And the question is, what is
No,
do well?
but again,
Because
just
hold on. Let me
yeah,
ask.
go ahead.
I'm asking.
Oh, yeah,
I'm not.
Go ahead.
Everybody relax.
I'm just like, you're wrong.
Well, I might be, and that's fine.
It's just
great.
Kenny.
So it sounds to me like doing well it sounds like he's talking about the offerings that they gave, and it sounds like being accepted sounds like being saved, or salvation or something. So it sounds like that is like, I guess what I'm saying is, isn't the description of whatever if we were to qualify what it means to be saved versus not being saved, isn't that God saying this is your job?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, I think you're just reading that in, because that's not
Maybe,
has
I don't
nothing
know.
to do with like that is not like Cain just gave an offering, Abel gave her offering, God
Mhm.
regarded Abel's offering. He didn't really have much regard for Cain's offering.
Yeah.
Cain is angry and sad. God says, "Hey, why are you angry? Why are you sad? If you do well, will you not be accepted?" Nothing to do about salvation. Nothing to do about like your purpose in life. He's
So
just
what
saying,
does it mean to be accepted then? By who?
he's
By
talking
God?
about the regard. He's talking about in regards to the offering that you gave.
I don't
Like,
know.
God
I
had
don't know,
no.
Ken. I'm kind of on the side of
Well,
Franklin with this one.
let me.
I think Ken's at the point where he's like, let's move on. All
Well,
right.
I want to move on too, but at
Cain
the
will
same
be
time,
accepted.
Like it's. I think the story's pretty clear. Like, he's talking about the offering. Like, if you do well, will you not be accepted? If you
But what is
don't do well,
accepted?
he's talking about the regard for the offering.
But he said you will be accepted, not your offering will be accepted.
Yeah, will you be accepted? That's in regards to what he's doing, because it's not about
Yeah,
the
I
actual
disagree.
thing. Remember, it's not about the actual thing. God doesn't care about the actual sheep or grape.
But it sounds
He
like
cares about you and how
Yes,
you're
but that's
giving
the
thing.
question. But like, why? From what we're reading,
Why? Why?
that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he is
Because
saying,
Cain wanted to be
I'm-
accepted. He doesn't care about it. Cain.
But see,
Oh, I
now
disagree.
you said
No, no,
Cain
no.
wanted to be accepted. You
Yeah.
didn't say what
I
Cain's-
think Cain wanted. Sorry, I think Cain wanted to be regarded, and I think God is saying, "Don't worry about being
No.
regarded."
Cain wanted
You
his
need to work-
offering to be
hold on.
regarded, because that means that he's
Yes.
accepted.
That's what Cain wanted, but I
Mhm.
think, maybe, but I look at it as what this makes sense to me is God's like, and that's why he's using a different word here. Is God's going, "Don't worry about that. Worry about being accepted." You know.
Yeah, God is taking it to a different level, because God doesn't care about the things; He cares
But-
about the people.
But
and
that's
what
why
they're
I'm
doing
inputting
things for, yeah.
salvation in there. God's saying,
But
"Don't
I
worry
think
about the
that's
blessings
just
I
a
give
little
you
bit
while
too
you're
far
here."
with bringing salvation in there, because
Why?
because salvation has to do with whether or not you're going to heaven or hell. Like, this is this is I think this is a little bit pared back, right?
So
I
hold
wanna
on a
keep
second.
the
So
context.
this is before Jesus, right? So like in this time, what did it take to go to heaven? Is it not just continuously showing glory to God? Like what does it take to get there? Because right now I believe it's to accept Jesus as your king, right?
So okay, yeah. So here's what I think. I think the idea of heaven and hell and an afterlife, right? Like I think what Ken is saying is like we're not even that. Like that's not even.
We're not.
We can't even
not
approach
the
it yet
story.
because so we discussed this. I think it was last episode for Genesis 3, the fall, fall from grace, right? Like I believe
we don't
what
even have the option anymore.
Well, I believe what we discussed was that
right.
Eden, right, like was possibly heaven on earth.
Sure.
And so, like, that's just not an option at the moment.
Yeah, you're right. So
maybe you have to
maybe
be redeemed to
so
even
maybe
get back.
rather than salvation being the end goal, maybe because hey, we don't have heaven anymore. This is all we have here. So all just like think of like other religions, right? They weren't asking to go to heaven. They were like, please bless us with crops this year. Please bless us with water this year, whatever. So maybe you're working so hard and trying to please God not to go to heaven because you don't think that's an option, but you're working so hard to please God because you just want him to bless you to make your life a little bit easier because life's really hard now.
That's I think they're more
Which
thinking.
means Ken is right.
I also want to say like you guys are talking about blessings, but it has not like I think that's still just more reading into what it says. It didn't say that God gave Abel anything besides regard for his offering.
So here I have a theory here, and this gets a little bit into like hand wavy, how it makes you feel kind of like territory, right? So, if you could read Cain and Abel's minds, right, during this moment, and or maybe just what Eugene was saying with like putting yourself in that situation, whether it's you and your own brother, I would guess, but there's really nothing in the text here that says this. So this is me like putting myself in the situation. If I were in Cain's position, and it goes kind of back to what we were saying, and I knew I was giving something, but I knew in my heart it wasn't the best thing I could give, or the real like the best fruits of my labor, right? Just some fruits of the labor, it's still worth it, just not the best I could do. Then, but I knew that in my heart, and that was Cain, and then Abel thinks I'm going to give the best possible thing I could even imagine giving, which is whatever the firstborn of my flock, and so it's not that, and then obviously, right, like Abel's was looked on with favor, Cain was not looked on with favor, but it was still something, and that was like, so what God is saying, like, keep on doing it, and like he's saying, if you are able to. He's not saying this, so I don't want to I don't want to read.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like
you are able.
He also didn't say keep on doing. He never said to keep on just keep on doing the same thing.
Hold on a second. I feel like Ken's getting uptight about us interpreting the Bible.
Yeah, I'm not
which I'm pretty
you
sure.
You don't have to make up words. There's
no,
words on the page.
Words. I think we're
why
trying
are
to
we
understand
making up new words?
It's not that we're making new words. We're trying to say what does this mean? If we just read the words on the page,
I mean,
I'm trying to figure out what those words mean.
You guys have a dictionary.
It doesn't mean exactly what it says. We're trying to figure out what it says. We're trying to figure out what it means.
I think it does, man. I think it does, but I think we also spend a lot of time on.
I think so too. Let me just get this last part out here, though. If I ultimately think the way I feel about it is doing well is up to what you feel like is the best that you can actually do. Honestly, that's what doing well is. So if it's if you're only giving as an offering, right, whether that's your time for prayer, whether that's like some type of monetary offering or and donations and things like that. If you're giving what you can spare, and like but not the best of what you can give, not truly what you can give, that's the difference. That's the difference between doing well and not doing well, or the difference between when God looks upon it with favor. And then like I'm gonna just say that I do think this ultimately connects to the New Testament with that parable from Jesus about the lady that gives like 2 gold coins, but that's like all she could possibly spare, and whatever, like that donation was more highly regarded than somebody that was rich and gave more money, but it was not as much as they could spare.
Yeah,
they should have been able to give more. So I think it's kind of like the same.
I agree with you.
The same thing.
Yeah, I think if we're looking through that lens, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I'm ready to
And
move
one
on.
last
I think
question,
we're
and
good.
I swear to God, it's a short one. I swear to God, it's crazy in this sense.
Is your question what is doing
Everyone's-
well?
If you guys say
What
that,
is the Bible?
Please.
No, but everyone's text does say well, right? Because mine says right. That's all I want to make sure.
Mine says well, yeah.
Mine
Mine
says
says
well,
well.
well, yeah. I'm wondering if that's a good translation, well or right.
Because I don't
like,
think that's a good translation. But I'm
The
not going to. I
Hebrew
don't want to
word
harp
is
on it.
like tebib, which you can translate it either way.
Yeah,
I don't
because
know.
we can have a whole other discussion on right and well. So that's
Mhm.
just what I want to make
Mhm.
sure because mine
Yeah.
says right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
So shall we jump to verse 8?
Yeah, I
Shall we
want to
keep-
move on to the.
Great.
It's been way too long on that one.
He got him.
And maybe it's just my logical software programming mind. But I'm like, I don't know why we're not just reading the text. And,
I disagree. I'm
everyone's
about to put in a
everyone's
compilation
gonna come in like,
episode.
oh, well, I think this.
No,
like,
I'm putting in a
who cares what you
compilation
think they
episode.
wrote
I
down
saw
a
the smoke
sentence?
coming out of your ears.
Oh my God.
I'm going to put a
It's like,
compilation
what?
episode of every time Ken has interpreted the Bible rather than take it word for word.
Well, then call me out on it. It's a good, but like, don't let me spew out BS.
So
Like,
you,
well,
you
I
wanted
think
to
it
move
says
on so
this,
fast to him killing his brother, and that's what you were trying to speed up to. Him saying, "Yo, let's go take a walk, man."
Yeah,
And then
I'd
he
rather. Let's move on
You're
to
ready
next
for that.
then,
That's
yeah.
what you're trying to rush into. All right, cool. Let's do
I'm
it.
ready to rush into it. Ready to rush it. So Cain kills
Let's
his
do it.
brother. He kills his
Yeah.
brother. God literally just warns him like, "Hey, if you don't do well, you have to contend with some sort of sin. Just make sure it doesn't control you. You got to control it." Clearly, Cain doesn't control his sin. It just
Mhm.
and I think, I mean, do you guys think? And this is just a random question. When it says Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, was that intentional? Because I don't know if the text makes it clear or not. I'm trying to see. Do you think Cain decided already to just kill him, or did it come from good intentions that went bad? Does that even matter according to the
I'm sorry.
story?
Can you ask that one more time?
Well, it doesn't
I'm sorry.
say specifically, and I only go by the words printed on the.
Well,
I'm
does
just
it
kidding.
not?
I'm just kidding.
Does it
I think
not
it's a
say
great question.
specifically? You know, like, well, of course
Yeah,
you
can-
do
can
because
you
you don't
ask
care
that
about
one
the
time?
words on the page.
I think it's a great question.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna repeat that question for Eugene. I was saying, like, do you think Cain? Because it starts off by saying Cain spoke to Abel, right? Do you think Cain was trying to just make things right? Or do you think immediately he was just, I'm gonna just go and kill this guy, and this is how I'm gonna do
Well,
it?
What is like? I don't know. I'm sure they spoke about something. I don't know if Cain was already overcome
Lost.
by it, but like, it's not like Abel can make this better for him.
Yeah.
So it's not
So
like he
whenever
was
you do
going
me
to
a favor
Abel.
and
Mhm.
actually read your verse 8, because mine says it doesn't say he spoke to him. It says, "Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field." While they were
Oh.
in the field,
Okay.
That's
Cain
very
attacked his
different.
brother.
So that your verse 8 is completely different from what me and I guess Ken are looking at.
Yeah.
It says ours says Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. And then the next verse is, and when they were it's not the next verse, but it says and when they
Oh.
were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. So maybe it is just that. Cain spoke to his brother and said, "Let's go into the field." Maybe that's all they said.
No, I
That's
see.
literally what
I see
have.
the note,
Yeah.
right? The note says in the ancient Hebrew text, it just says Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. But in the Samaritan or Septuagint or Syriac, which is Syrian or Vulgate, it adds, "Let us go out to the field," right?
Mm.
So
they're
if
just
we were going by
pointing
the
out those-
original,
yeah.
then it doesn't specifically say what they spoke about, right? That was an addition later. So I guess it's fair to say, what do you think they were speaking about? Maybe it was just let's go to the field. Maybe it was something else. But I, don't
for the
think
sake of conversation, let's just go with the text you guys have, since I'm solely going with the text
yeah.
Yeah.
and not with my religious beliefs. I'm solely
Yep.
going with the text. So since we're on the same page, let's go with the text you have
Mhm.
that says he spoke to his brother and then they went to the field.
Sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I think at the very least we know that Cain didn't speak to Abel and go, "Hey, how are we going to rectify this?" kind of a thing, right?
I think
Well, because Abel has no control over God. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Maybe he
So-
went just to bitch with his brother and be like, "Hey, I can't believe you got this and I didn't." You know?
Mhm. Well, I it's interesting. I ultimately think it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
he killed him, right? Like
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if they
You're right.
could have had the best conversation, they could have reconciled everything, but then in the last minute, Cain snapped and was like, "No, screw this." I'm
Cain
gonna,
went,
kill him.
"Man, I love talking with you, man. I'm gonna miss this." Boom, rock
Yeah,
over the
like,
head.
I actually don't think that mattered because he
You're
ultimately was overcome by sin, and like
Mhm.
so
I think,
and
yeah,
that's
a
kind
good
of
point.
like that's what maybe this is like a bit of the opposite. So you guys know that that Greek tragedy I'm gonna mess it up. Antigone Do you guys know that
Not
Greek
familiar,
tragedy?
but I heard about it.
Yeah. It's spelled like Antigone, but it's pronounced Antigone. So I was almost said Antigone, but anyway, it's the idea is that the main character, who is like whatever, some like the emperor of Greece, or I don't know, whatever it is, some general or something, I forget. He ends up like killing his own nephew, and he's like, adamant that he was right. And then basically at the end, he spoiler for something that's like 3,000 years old, he
Spoiler
ends
for
up
Antigone.
he ends up realizing that he was wrong. Ultimately, I'm paraphrasing immensely, and that's where this term, the tragic hero, comes in. It's because he only realized why he was wrong way too late. Like, he cannot rectify anything. Like, so you're a tragic hero. That's kind of like an archetype of like an anti-hero, kind of similarly, right? Where it's like, ultimately, you maybe, like in a show like, The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, it's interesting to, watch those anti-heroes, but like they ultimately succumb to their whatever. Their
so you
desires, their
think
sins.
Cain was like, I'll kill Abel and offer Abel to God. That's even better than the first flock.
I was not thinking.
And then went, oh no, this is terrible.
What I'm saying is that
you want them so bad, have them.
That would be messed up. But ultimately, what I'm saying is, Cain made the choice reluctantly or willingly, whatever, and even after, right, like after then God says, like, what have you done, right, where's your brother? And it's like, no matter how remorseful Cain is, his brother's still dead. He still killed his brother. And so and I think that's kind of like, in a weird way, or whatever, not a weird way, it's poetic, because sin is always lurking. And it's like, you could feel like you're doing so well, you're not sinning, right? You're a master of yourself and all these things, but sin is still going to be lurking. Yeah. So that's ultimately what I think. I think it doesn't matter. Like, he killed his brother.
Is it sinful to
kill your brother? I don't know.
If he deserved it, what I mean? Like, don't give him better stuff. Don't give him better stuff.
Oh,
no, like, is it sinful to feel, feelings of angst, animosity, feelings of jealousy, feelings of... Is that sinful?
No, it is not.
I would say
okay, so that answers the question. Because I was going to go in the direction of, I thought, that was the overcoming of sin. It's, if you keep doing what you're doing and you're not doing what's right, just to go back a bit, you're going to be overcome with sin. I thought maybe his feeling of jealousy towards his brother was what the sin was, and feeling
I think
that.
Allowing jealousy, it's like, if you entertain the jealousy, that is not you being a master of sin. Right? That is the sin crouching at your door.
This is my Catholic school education showing up. Feelings are not moral. They are absent of morality. You could feel, terrible feelings towards somebody, like you want to kill them, all these things. The sin is doing it. Maybe what you're saying, Franklin, where like the sin could be, thinking about it, right, and ruminating on it, and not like, not willing to kind of like somehow do something to get rid of those thoughts, whether like seeking help or something like that. But ultimately the sin is doing it. And so I think that's why, like, there's some great lines I've heard from priests and different people in my life where Mother Teresa, I think, was like famous for talking about her own doubts in her faith. And it's kind of like I think we talked about this in a previous episode. Doubt is a fundamental aspect of faith, just in the same way that, like, I think feelings are a fundamental, like, not fundamentally sin, where it's like you could feel terrible things, but to triumph is to not actually do it. So ultimately that's why that sin is always lurking. It's the same idea.
But is it
trust me, I'm listening. I'm looking over and reading, because I wanted. So I just typed in, is jealousy sin, right? And a lot of the answers I'm looking at are saying yes. So,
well, they're wrong. I don't know.
Well, hold
on.
Tell you. I think what they mean by that, because that was going to be my question, is entertaining and allowing that feeling to run rampant. Even so, for example, let's say you're jealous and that makes you want to steal something from somebody else. Maybe you're not stealing from it, but you're not going, I need to get past this. I know that's wrong. You're going, yeah, and you know what? I should be able to. And maybe I'm never going to do it, but I do deserve it. And you're like now allowing and entertaining those thoughts. That's an action. I feel like that does sound like a sin. So it
Yeah.
sounds like
I would agree with that.
you know what I mean? Feeling
So-
jealous isn't, but I feel like allowing
The only
it
reason
to
I feel like
keep
it is
going.
though, and it's not James. Like James, I wasn't looking this up to disprove you. It's just to change my perspective on
Mhm.
what I'm reading.
Sure.
It's if your brother is doing, specifically your brother, honestly, if your
Mhm.
brother's doing well, why do you not like that he's doing well?
Yeah.
Why do
You could like it and still be a little
So,
jealous.
I
But,
would
like, why are you jealous that I'm getting like he's getting rewarded? Why are you? Why
Mhm.
not be grateful for like that your brother is getting rewarded and feel great for him rather
Mhm.
than towards yourself where you're like, why do I deserve this too? Not he doesn't
So
say he deserves
there's-
it, but like why feel that way?
There's a couple of things. So one, I would say, I mean, the Bible in later, it's actually in a place called James chapter 1, verse 13 to 15, right? Which goes very, very clearly on like what sin is in relation to your feelings or stuff. It says, well, let no one say when he is tempted, I'm being tempted by God, because God cannot be tempted by evil, and God never tempts anybody. But each person is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own desire. So you have desire, and if you're lured and enticed by your desire, now you're tempted. And desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin. And then sin, when it's fully grown, brings forth death. So sin only comes from your desires, right? And so in a sense, being jealous is a sort of desire. You want something that you can have, whatever. That's a desire that can very well lead to conceiving sin, right? So jealousy in and of itself kind of technically isn't sin, but it's problematic. And that's why God warns Cain about sin, right? I think that's kind of the point. So if you're saying like, he's seeing Cain do well. He starts like, why would Cain? I'm sorry, Cain sees Abel do well. Why would Cain not feel glad that Abel did well? Because Cain has his own desires, right? He wants to be the one who's regarded. He wants to one, and not just Abel, or maybe he wants to be better than Abel. I don't know. Those are his desires, but those desires will lead to sin if not mastered, and kind of what God's talking about.
I guess that's the idea too of like sin, crouching at your door, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not the sin is not inside yet,
No.
but it's crouching at your door and it's trying to get in. Are you going to actively shut the door, or are you going to allow it to come in, or at the very least not take the not go to the effort to close the door, but not take the effort to you're leaving it cracked, maybe not open. I think all those are definitely fair when looking at the personification of sin in that way.
Can I? I'm going to suggest
No.
one of my famous media recommendations. Early. So there's this great song by Joyner Lucas.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
You
laugh.
guys familiar with Joyner Lucas?
Oh hell yeah,
I love him.
he's good.
Broski is a song came out I think 2 years ago, and it's interesting in this discussion about Cain and Abel, because it's kind of like that's the dynamic is of the song is about like a best friend and somebody that is a best friend to Joyner, and so it's like he's jealous of his success. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic, and it's almost like the epitome of that rumination, where which is what we're talking about, where it's like I think it does go too far, and I think that that's a perfect example of when you can be jealous and it does go too far. You don't act on it, you're not doing anything overtly sinful, but it's so in your head, and you're not seeking any way to change that rumination, that behavior, or that desire. But even though it might not spread to behavior, so I think that that's fascinating. Yeah, I have not thought about that in a long time, and it makes you really think. You're like, you know what? It just puts things into perspective in my own life, where I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything that I think is overtly sinful, but what am I stuck on that might not be good?
And what's interesting is it makes me think, like, just to go back to the text, right? So we don't know what Cain spoke to Abel about, but let's say he was entertaining the jealousy, right? By going there and being like, why did you deserve this? Like maybe just talking about it with his brother, but being like, being jealous and being a little angry about it. Well, I'm saying like, it sounds like because he didn't close the door to that, because sin was crouching, if that's what the jealousy was, then the conversation ended with Cain. So maybe to answer your question for back then, Kenneth, like, no, I don't, maybe he didn't go in there already knowing I'm going to kill Abel, you know? Maybe he didn't, but because he was not specifically closing the door to sin that is, crouched right outside of it, that materialized with the sin of actually murdering Abel. And then I know I said this before, it results with, the Lord said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? Like, again, another question that he totally knew the answer to, I'm assuming, because he is God.
Yeah.
He clearly says in the next verse that he's like, I know where your brother is. You killed him.
Well, it doesn't say that. Maybe he found out when he was, regardless, doesn't matter. But it instantly, without hesitation, Cain turns around and says, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? So not only is he saying, is he lying? But he's turning around and he's going, is it even my job to watch over him, actually? So he's, he's making it worse. He's angry. The Lord says, what have you done? The voice of my brother's blood is crying to me from the ground, and now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Which I think all that's interesting. My wife was asking, like, why is like the blood personified as like crying from the ground, and what does it mean that the ground opens its mouth to receive his brother's blood? I think that's just interesting.
I think that's interesting
personification.
Too. Just like everything with God is personified, and I think that's just because God doesn't see anything like we do. Like, in order for us to talk to things, they need to talk. They need to have a brain. They need to whatever. For God, like there's like. For God, everything's like it's equally just creation. Like he can communicate with
that's interesting.
Anything if he wants, honestly.
But yeah, isn't that interesting? How like it's like we watch Cain start to spiral into this like just more and more sinning. It's like once you allow the sin to start, it's real hard to stop now because controls you. Well, because I'm going to assume that Cain is probably feeling shame for some of the sin and embarrassment, just like we talked about from, so he's covering himself up and he's hiding, and then after God goes into like, hey, and here's what's going to happen to you. So when you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength, which I think is interesting because like it's specifically saying like your job was to work the ground and grow food, and now you're living in a land of famine. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. So, because your ground doesn't produce food anymore, you have to keep moving. You can't just settle down in one place. I'm curious what fugitive, like what exactly he means by that. Like I know what fugitive means. And then Cain's response is, my punishment is greater than I can bear. I can't do this. This isn't fair. Like that's what greater than I can bear sounds like, is this isn't fair. I can't even handle this punishment. This is too much. And I'm like, dude, you just killed your brother and lied to God about it? Like, and you're going to tell him that the punishment's not fair? Like, I just think that all of that is so interesting to watch the spiral.
I mean, but do you think it was shame that he was feeling, or was it just passive aggression where he's like, hey, so where's Abel? And he's like, why are you asking me that? Like, why? Why do you
but first he lies and said, I don't know. So if you're lying to, like, it sound like for, I don't want to say shame.
Okay, so what is your text say? So mine, I'm reading, he attacked his brother Abel and killed him. He then said to the Lord, where's your brother? He says, I don't know. He does say, I don't know. Wow. Yeah, he does say, I don't know. So
that's why, like, that says to me that you wouldn't lie about something you did unless you knew you wanted to hide it, and wanting to hide it is some type of either shame. But
you could also
fear.
say, I don't know. You don't always say, I don't know, out of shame though. So if you're like, where did you put if you were trying to hide something from me, not hide something from me, but if you really cherished something and you did something that really pissed me off, and I took that thing away from you and put it somewhere, and you said, where's my trumpet? And I'm like, I don't know, you find it. Like, I'm not shame. I'm not feeling shame that I hid it from you. I'm just like annoyed with you. I'm like, you just go find it. I don't care.
Maybe. I don't see anything that specifically makes me think. I think it's both. I think the am I my brother's keeper is the passive aggressive part.
Yeah, like the insult to injury, where you're like, I don't know, if you like Abel so much, you go find him. Like that kind of.
Yeah,
I don't think you're thinking.
Yeah, I don't know where he is. I can't seem to find him anywhere. I don't think it's that kind of. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's interesting. I think of it as like a kid in trouble. Like, like they've frozen up. They don't know what to say. That's my interpretation of it. But I haven't thought of it another way. But obviously the line that always gets the most attention is, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Which is interesting because I feel like I've heard people use that phrase in the same exact way that Cain is saying it, where people or somebody accuses you of something, or not taking care of somebody or not taking care of whatever, and they're like, "Oh, is it my job to do that? Or am I my brother's keeper?"
That's why I
like,
think
I think it's the way
that's
they
literally
broke
what
the
Cain
text
said.
apart.
He's the guy that did something wrong.
That's why I
So-
think it's both what Eugene is saying and what Franklin's saying. It's just a little bit of both. Like, one, it's him's shame, trying to like hide what he did and just blatantly lying, and two, he's kind of dismissal. Like, I'm not that's not my job. I don't care. Whatever, you take care of it. Like he didn't just say, "Oh, I don't know. Where is he?" He said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" It's like you see both of those tensions.
Yep, I agree.
Kind of in there. So I think that is true.
Yeah,
Because
and I think it's the way it's written as well and broken apart, because it says, "I don't know." Well, the way
It's a
mine is
colon,
written,
right?
it says, "I don't know." He replied, "Am I my brother's keeper?"
Mhm.
Breaking it apart like that makes it sound like two separate thoughts and responses,
Mhm.
even though you could have just said, "He said, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?"
Mhm.
Even though it's
Mine just has a semicolon, but I think that
That's
also
the
means
same
to break it
thing.
apart. I don't know. No one
Yeah.
knows what a semicolon does.
I know, right? Like semicolons. No, I think that means exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I know. What do you guys think fugitive, like, why is, like, who's pursuing Cain now? Like, a fugitive from who?
are
Other
we
people.
are we at verse 10 and 11 now?
That is 12.
You shall
Okay.
be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth.
Yeah, fugitive from who? Like, who's gonna?
Oh, interesting. Mine
go
says,
kill
"You
Cain."
shall become a restless wanderer on the earth."
Yeah, mine says that as well. You become a
Restless
restless
wanderer.
wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me.
I guess
Yeah.
I could see that, because a fugitive is like never comfortable, right? Is never able to settle somewhere. So I guess that makes sense.
Okay.
Similar translation. You can go either way. But yeah, it's just going to be other people. Where those
Yeah.
other people come from, I don't know. We talked about it at the beginning, but it's going to be other people.
Yeah.
But how do
But I
you-
guess, like, why are they going to kill? I guess my assumption looking at this is like, yeah, I guess there's nothing that says it, but it sounded like, and people are going to come get you for what you did. But I guess it's not. It's just more like you're in an unsafe place and people might kill you. Not like God is sending people out into the world to go hunt you down. Like,
Yeah, and
Mhm.
wait, is there that line, Gene? I think you had mentioned it early on in this episode. You said, like, away from my presence.
I was gonna bring that up again. I'm so stuck
why-
on that.
Well, so I wonder, and this is me adding information that's not there, so it's probably not the case.
He hid behind a tree. That's what it
yeah,
was.
yeah, exactly. No, so they, chapter 3, Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden.
Hold on. Just really quick. Can we maybe get through because it seems like we're kind of breaking this paragraph down.
Yeah, that's
let's
fine.
get
We
to
can
it,
wait.
because I feel like the context might matter.
Okay, yeah. So where were we?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just keep reading. So Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden." Like, it doesn't say he's out of his, it says that again later. But so he starts with, "And from your face I shall be hidden." Like, you've driven me away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. It doesn't sound like he's hiding from God here. It's that I shall be hidden, So I don't know at all what that means.
Again, we gotta really lock down the translation version that we're using here, because, and I imagine.
No, I
Gene,
like that it's
we're reading
different. I
the
think
same
that's
thing.
helpful.
Is verse 14 says, "Since you have now banished me from the soil, and I must avoid your presence and become a restless wanderer on the earth, anyone may kill me at sight."
Mine
So
is so different, but it's
So mine
Really?
continues
What is
to
yours
that.
say?
Mine is different, but it's so much
Eugene?
closer to yours, James. Mine says,
Yeah.
Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Yeah, it's much
So-
closer to James's translation than
yeah,
and
and again, so at least the way I'm reading what Gene and I are seeing is, it's that we, as I understand, again, I'm bringing in New Testament knowledge into this, so this is like possibly not like a super valid interpretation for that reason. But the act of committing a mortal sin is you're severing your relationship with God. You're severely damaging your relationship with God, and that's what's happening with Cain. He's no longer allowed to be in the presence of God, and whatever that may mean, it might not mean like the same physical presence, but it could just mean spiritual presence, right?
Do we think that he's not allowed to be in the presence of God, or do we think that he is removing himself from the presence of God?
but how though? Like, what is the presence of God? Like that?
I don't-
I think that's
God
a great
sees
question.
all.
Actually, I think that's a great. I think being the presence of God is not what God knows or what God sees. Right? It's
coming before God.
No, like it's like the same. All right, like when you're in the presence of, like, for example, the government, that means you're in the courtroom, you're in the White House, you're in Congress, whatever. That doesn't mean that wherever you are, the government can't figure out what you're doing and see what you're doing. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
So that's kind of the point. Like maybe because it seems like, for example, at the beginning, Cain and Abel have quite an interesting relationship with God at the beginning, right? They're giving an offering, God's talking to him or whatever. And it seems like he's driven away from that. Like whatever relationship Cain and Abel had, or Cain had at the beginning, is not going to be the same relationship he has in the end. And what he says is like, whether from your face I shall be hidden, or away from your presence. It just seems like whatever relationship he has, he's not going to have. He's going to basically be on his own. And I think that's what that means when you're out of the presence. It's like you're
he's disregarding him.
It's like, you're an ambassador. You're either by the embassy or you're out in the town in a foreign nation, right?
Or even if we keep it like with religion, right? It's like, okay, to go and be in the presence of the Lord, maybe I have to go to church, or even just sit down in my home and decide to pray or whatever. But it sounds like he's like, I'm not gonna do that anymore, right? I'm not going to put myself in your presence. I'm not hidden from you.
Yeah, does it go with, like, let's say you have some small level of fame here, like everyone knows who you are within this city, and you go to another city, no one knows who you are. You're just another person there. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, he continues, I shall be a fugitive and wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. And the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord put a mark on Cain. I kind of got from that even though Cain did what he did, it's still not just to kill him. Like, and I think back then, like, if you think of like, an eye for an eye, and all that kind of stuff, it's basically kind of saying like, no, murder is not the answer to murder. This is not that. And I will punish those who sin against you as well. Like, it is not just to sin against you just because you have sinned in this way. Is kind of what I've gotten from that.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Yeah, I completely like that. It's almost like we saw Cain go down this vicious cycle, get wrapped up very quickly in the text in this vicious cycle of sin, and God's, I think, directly showing here in the text that has to end. That cannot be continued now or justified through more sin. So yeah,
which to me agree. Is like, this is. I've felt this way for a while, but this is like kind of justifying that in my head. This is like affirming that. I don't believe in the death penalty for that reason. I don't think it is our place, no matter what, to take a life. And so here I'm watching, like, we're talking about the sin of taking a life, and God specifically says, anyone that kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. Like, I will punish those who sin against you.
I feel like if you murder someone, that if you are murdered, you will automatically put in a good place, which is why God is like, no, don't kill him, because he's going to be in a good place. He doesn't deserve that. He needs to be punished for what he did.
I don't know if I agree with that. I just look at it as, hey, it is not man's place to decide when you end, and that's why I look at this and I go, I mean, listen, self-defense, like, we could get into that conversation. I don't think that's really where we're going right now, but I look at it as, like, for example, if, let's say, there's somebody who's supposed to be put to death and instead they lock them up in jail forever, right? I don't think that means they should be free to go gallivant. They should, if they're a dangerous society, lock them up, right? Maybe that person gets to a place where they are going to repent for their sins and they come to God and XYZ or whatever. Like, I think that's a good thing. And I think killing them, I have mixed feelings about this, but at the very least, it's like us trying to rob them of their opportunity. That is not our place to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't know if getting murdered specifically means you just go to heaven. Actually, I don't want to say I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think there's too many variables.
No, I don't actually think that's I think that's one of those kind of just a funny thing where it's just like, as he's making, like, God's creating the universe, and his thing is just like, you know what? Not an error.
It's like house rules in Pong.
Yeah, he's like, oh man, if you're murdered, you just damn it, just go to heaven. Like, that wasn't you weren't supposed to be murdered, and so you murdered somebody. Your punishment is to deal with the consequences of murdering somebody. So if somebody murders you in response to that, that's the easy way out. Now you don't have to deal with your punishment.
I like that phrase. You have to deal with the consequences of murdering somebody, because I do think that's important. I mean, that's what he's going through. Is like, no, you're not going to get killed because
that's the easy way out. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about it now. Now you have to deal with the consequences now.
Does anybody have an opinion on what it means to be marked? Like with that mark that Cain has?
Yeah, I think the mark is saying, look, everyone is going to know who you are, and they are not allowed to kill you. Just like if somebody puts a bounty on someone's head, they know who you are, and they know they're supposed to kill you.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Are you thinking like what the mark physically would look like if it's visible?
You're asking me what I meant?
Yeah.
No,
Franklin,
I just meant like
what?
Okay.
No, I just meant like what does that mean? He put a mark on Cain. Lest who found him should attack him. I guess it's like a mark sound. I guess kind of, but not really. I don't really care what it looked like.
Yeah,
I'm just more like, what is that? Like, can I do? Because I, in general, think like, all right, now the descendants of, I think Cain's existence is a comment on human nature, right? And like, so is the mark of Cain something we can recognize today? Like, is that something we interact with today?
The mark of Cain would only be on Cain.
Yeah.
So it would have nothing that we could do today, right?
I guess that's
It'll be like if Cain walks in the building and we're all sitting there like, oh, I'm like, oh, something about that guy. I don't like that guy.
So I guess my question is,
like, no, don't. You know who that is? I'm like,
but then why is it included? Why does it matter that we know he was marked?
So you know not to kill him, and if you kill him, you know
we can't kill him,
right?
And they can't kill him, even when from the historical perspective of the
well, they can. They just shouldn't kill him. They not to. They can.
It would be worse.
Not at the writing of this.
Hold on.
The writing says whoever kills him will be punished 7 times over.
Right. So you can do it. It just would be worse punishment. But here's what I think is, and I wonder if this is what this text is trying to say or does say, is when Adam and Eve were punished for disobeying God in the Garden of Eden, all of humanity was punished. But when Cain killed his brother, only Cain was punished. It wasn't like it wasn't original sin. It's saying like this will not be transferred to your descendants. I mean, it actually does kind of say that later on, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But it's not in the same way that like all of humanity is punished. It's like no, this is you, this is your doing. So this is not representative of all of humanity.
The bringing up of the mark is more saying like you are marked because of your sin. It's not like that's what humanity. I see what you're saying. Okay, that makes sense to me.
But I don't know because if I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, we can go back. But at the end, verse 23, Lamech said to his wives, verse 23, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, wives of Lamech, listen to my utterance. I have killed a man for wounding me, a boy for bruising me. If Cain is avenged 7-fold, then Lamech 77-fold. So I'm not entirely sure. It gets kind of weird right, pretty quick. And then maybe your guys' translation says something different. So we can kind of get to that point when we get to it. But it might actually go contrary to what I was just saying about Cain is the only one.
I mean, we are getting to it. I mean, all that was left in that paragraph was that Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden, which just an asterisk that I don't think we need to get into. But like, oh, Eden's still there, which I didn't expect.
What is Nod? If I can just say it quickly.
I think it's just a different place.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that
is.
That's all I really needed.
Yeah, in earlier chapters, it does lay out specifically some geographical features like different rivers. So it is interesting kind of to try and figure out like geographically what we're talking about. But yeah.
But even just the idea of like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so maybe it's east of where Eden was. I don't know if Eden's still there, but either way. So now we get into like this whole breakdown of like, first of all, just because I think it's interesting and I'm very excited to do an episode on it. I didn't know Enoch was Cain's son.
Oh, well, that's a different. There's multiple.
Different Enoch?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good to know. There's more than one James on the world.
Yeah,
planet, so yeah.
Yeah, prove it.
I wouldn't think Enoch was.
I mean, I guess it was a pretty popular name at some point.
Sorry, just going back to what you just said.
There's only one here, so
it's like, but just the idea of like, there's a million James. There's probably a million Enochs. Like it's like it's funny because
at the time,
right? Like at the time.
Yeah, it's just funny to hear.
Like our parents' names are dated. So, like there were a bunch of them at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first like moment where it kind of just went through a bunch of people. I didn't really know what to do with all that. I don't know, Ken. I know you specifically dug through the Bible a lot more. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious how you read that, like, and what you're kind of thinking.
There's a number of things. One, some of these names are names that I guess people would recognize and to be like, oh, again, the contemporaries of who's listening to these stories like 5,000 years ago, right? They'd be like, oh, okay, I understand that. And that's why it would get to like key people, right? When it goes to, for example, Jabal, who was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock, right? That's it. It makes Jabal, and I think Jabal's only referenced this one time, but that level of mythic, legendary type of name, right? Like, oh, he's those are the tent dwellers, and all of the tent dwellers, they came from this Jabal, right, guy.
Oh, so like all of these people are like
Yeah.
maybe possibly like key people in the people of the earth.
Yeah,
Of
or
the-
like
of the
Jubal,
groups.
who was the father of all those who play the lyre and the pipe, like father of musician and stuff like that. Or Tubal Cain, who was the father of all like bronze working and iron working. So
Those almost sound like lowercase g gods if you kind of think about
in
it.
a sense, yeah, because they are mythical. When I say mythical, I mean like they are like mythical, like in the same
Like
way
they
that
have legend
Hercules
status?
is, or Odysseus from the Odyssey, or Gilgamesh, right? Those are those type of people that have that kind of
Gilgamesh.
status in their contemporary history.
But they're
right?
still people.
Yeah,
right?
they're not.
Okay.
They're not in their stories. They're not gods, right? Well,
Okay.
maybe Hercules is demigod.
Well, that's why when you said Hercules, I was like, hold on, you know.
But you know,
so-
they're not gods, but they're just like people of renown, men of renown.
Got
We'll
it.
see that term later.
So that I
Um,
guess goes back to the idea, just to reference it because we did at the beginning. Like I said, like like all these people that were named, how come it didn't name like Cain's sister? That but
Yeah,
it
it
seems
just-
like they're only naming the people of note of
Relevant.
some type of note.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They don't really care about everyone's names.
We need some B-roll at the end of this episode of Ken just reading all the names as best as he can.
I do like the name Tubal Cain. That just sounds so cool to me. I don't know.
I like
It does.
Lamech.
I don't.
With the
Lamech. Two
I gotta say
sounds
Lamech.
cool as.
Tubal Cain sounds bad cool. I don't know. Like I
But
watch a
if you name
movie
your- if you
just
name your
based on
kid
Tubal.
that, you
I mean,
are
it's
a certain type of person.
Oh man. Yeah, so hopefully that answers what you were asking. I did think so verse 23 and 24, I think is really not a good thing. I think that's just exemplifying like how corrupt or bad that line is of his family. Because then you have Lamech, who already has 2 wives, which is okay. And he's saying like, listen, I killed a man for wounding me. I killed a young man for striking me, right? Or a boy, right? So if Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech is, first of all, anyone who talks about themselves in the third person is weird. But Lamech's is 77-fold. Like, is he just making his own type of
So,
like mark
can you-
of Cain on
Wait, is
himself?
he-
Like,
Well,
Is
can
he
you
speaking in
can you
third person?
explain this just a little bit because this is confusing me, and maybe it's just more clear to you.
Mhm.
So who is Lamech, and
oh, okay.
is he of the line of Cain or not?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he's mentioned earlier.
if you follow like 17, so Cain has a wife and she gives birth
Son
to
of
Enoch.
Methuselah.
Enoch builds an
Methuselah.
entire city and names.
No,
And
Cain built a city and named it Enoch.
Oh yeah. Well, Cain has a son named Enoch, and Cain also
Mhm.
builds a city and names it after Enoch.
Mm-hmm.
And then Enoch had a
Was
child
born
called
Irad.
Irad. Irad has someone called Mehujael.
Mehujael.
Who
Ooh,
fathered
Michael.
That's probably what it
Methusael,
is.
and Methusael
Michael.
fathered Lamech. So Lamech is, I guess.
Okay.
I mean,
So
I don't
Lamech
even know how
is
many
the direct
generations
line
are
of Cain.
between some of these people, because sometimes
Right.
they skip generations, right?
Why'd they
So-
say it like this?
Lamech just is a descendant.
So this is what I don't get. So Lamech eventually, right, kills a young boy for wounding him, and so he's saying that, I guess, I'm the first descendant of Cain that has now killed another person. So therefore, if you kill me, you'll be avenged sevenfold, so 77 times.
Mhm.
Even though 7 times 7 is not 77, but
Bible says it is now. Sorry.
Yeah, it just said 77-fold. We just
Yeah.
added another 7
That
to the
sounds
number,
like,
right?
oh
It's like,
God, who is that? Terrence Howard? 7 times 7.
no,
Your
1 times
turn.
1 is 2 is what Terrence Howard said.
oh, so
So-
like,
So yeah,
Um,
is that the idea there? And I don't know.
Yeah.
And like we spent a lot of time analyzing the first half of this chapter, and I think that was fascinating. And I think personally, when the Bible does this and just starts listing a bunch of names and saying a bunch of stuff about people, and I'm like, okay, like blah 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 blah. You know, like it's hard to follow. I need like to write out a timeline. So, is there something to be gleaned here, or do you guys just think like What do you guys think? Yeah, I don't
What
really
I
know what
take
to
from
make.
it, and I don't know if there's an answer. I just finally did the math after reading Father of, Father of, Father of.
Mhm.
Cain is just is Enoch's. Cain is Lamech's great great grandfather. That's just
Okay.
all I took away from that, and I
Mhm.
don't know if that answered anything. That just it felt good to say out loud.
It just says, yeah, like it just keeps going down. So I don't think it really means much besides. I mean, this is just more of a transition of time. It's showing like, oh, that's what happened,
Yeah.
and then from that, all these things happened. Cain didn't die, and Cain was evil, but he fathered all these. He fathered a city. He fathered all these people, and now we're trying to get from the beginning of time. Like basically, the story is trying to get from the beginning of the time to modern day, which modern day is really like 6,000, 3,000 years ago. So they're trying to get to that point, and they're just saying like, okay, well, that's what happened to Cain. Cain was bad, but Cain fathered the city, who had children, who did all these crazy things like creating metal works and iron and creating music and creating all these other things. Because people want to know where everything came from, right?
It's
Like-
interesting just to say though that it came from Cain specifically.
It did.
I just find that interesting. I also find it interesting the whole idea of like saying if Cain's revenge is sevenfold, then I, Lamech, who's
Yeah, that's
like
just wild. I don't
in
know.
this. Well, like that's I guess this isn't why I thought that, but I guess it just kind of like makes me think it again. The idea of like because I carry Cain's bloodline and his revenge was sevenfold. Well, now because I've also killed somebody, now mine is 77-fold. And if the next what's it called? And if someone else in our bloodline kills somebody, then it's going to be 777-fold or whatever. So I don't know. It's just interesting. Or is he more like boastful? And he's like, I also have killed somebody. And so if Cain's was 7, then you strike me down. And it really, because I'm so boastful about myself, it's really going to come for you.
That's
But who wounded
that's what
him?
I think, because at no point does God make that claim here. It's just Lamech making this claim.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Exactly.
why I'm thinking like Lamech is kind of coping here. He's just like, oh, now I'm even more protected. I'm boasting that I like nobody can kill me.
That's why it sounds like he
yeah.
thinks it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
but
kind of
I
wild.
don't know.
But
I'm gonna have to do some research on this one.
who did
Lamech
Lamech
kill?
kill?
He's just
A
some young man.
guy.
boy.
I don't know if it was
So
one or
that's
two,
what I'm-
depending on how he said it.
And he said, but who wounded him? And like, who?
I don't
wounded
think
him
it
and who did he kill?
matters. I think it's more just the idea of like, I killed somebody and all they did was wound me. You know what I mean? So like, talk about an eye for an eye, right? Like I killed him
No.
for even harming
Okay,
me.
okay, you're right. It doesn't matter. I'm reading it again. I don't think it really matters.
I don't think
He's just
so.
saying-
I think it's
he's
just the fact.
saying, yeah, Cain killed somebody and got wounded. I killed somebody, and it's just going to be worse for me. Okay, I thought it actually had something to do specifically with murdering Cain. No, well, Cain murdering Abel, versus it's just the punishment that he received, not.
I don't think it's the
someone
punishment.
in
I think it's
relation-
the protection of like just like Cain was like, I'm gonna die out here, and God, someone's gonna kill me, and God was like, no, they won't, because if they kill you, they'll be punished too. So I think
Mhm.
he's basically saying, I've killed somebody, I'm in Cain's bloodline, and so if Cain's revenge is sevenfold, mine's gonna be
yeah.
multiplied.
Okay,
you know?
so just actually a quick thing. So I forget who said it. If he killed one or two people, because it does. My first interpretation was he killed one person, and he's saying because he's of the bloodline of Cain, his whatever he's his avenge. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. But it could
you think-
possibly be interpreted he killed two people. I have killed a man for wounding me, a boy for bruising me. Are the man and the boy two separate people or the same person?
Well, that's different than mine. Mine says, listen to what I
Oh.
say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. Like, because he uses man twice in mine,
Yeah.
it could be interpreted as just like,
Well,
I'm elaborating.
Mhm.
Whereas that sounds like 2. And maybe instead of saying mine is 77 because I'm in Cain's bloodline, so now it's magnified, maybe he's saying because I have killed 2,
Mhm.
now it's like, so like almost like kind of saying like, even if it's a serial killer, that does not justify that they can be killed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you cannot sin against them. That's not the
that's
answer.
just
Two
to that
wrongs
point
make
of
a
like
right.
if it wasn't 1 or 2. The reason why I don't know is because this type of phrasing is common of that time period,
I
where
was thinking the
sometimes
same
they say the same thing again in a different way. So it could just be one person. He's just elaborating.
And if I may, I think that goes back to us saying, I don't know, he replied, am I my brother's keeper? It's just the way the text is written, him saying, I killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. the way it's written could be interpreted as two people.
Mhm.
But I think he's really just saying, I killed a man, a young man.
Yeah,
Or-
exactly.
I
Exactly.
agree. Yeah.
Or hold on,
Exactly,
maybe
Eugene.
it's. I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe he defended himself and killed them. Maybe these people were hurting
Maybe
him.
it was in self-defense. It could be in self-defense
Maybe
too.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Like
Yeah.
I know we're reading it like, oh, but I'm like, and so maybe it's like I killed
what kind of
somebody
wound?
and I sinned, but
Mhm.
it was out of need, and so maybe for some reason that means like he's even more protected. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing. But like we are kind of putting the intent of like I murdered people for murder's sake, you know. But all
Yeah,
he
that
did
may
was
not
hurt
be correct.
me.
Yeah, given what he said, because he did say, "I killed a man for wounding me." Like
Mhm.
maybe it was revenge, or maybe it was self-defense. I don't know.
I don't know. So I think maybe just the idea, the main takeaway is just the fact that like justified or unjustified, because Cain did it in an unjustified way, and let's make the argument for right now that maybe this was justified. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's sin is not the answer to sin.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, that makes that saying it that way puts it into perspective for me. I think that makes sense. Where no matter exactly what you're saying, no matter if it was done out of jealousy or out of whatever wrong reasons, or whether it's done out of self defense and possibly a necessity, there's like you shouldn't try and correct the sin by sinning more. You shouldn't.
So then
try
it raises. I'm sorry.
seek
You weren't
revenge.
finished.
I was just saying you shouldn't try and seek revenge. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it raises the question for me. Then it's okay if someone is beating me. What am I supposed to do? Not beat them back? Am I supposed to just lay there and take it? And why do I deserve that?
I thought that for a second. I don't know if it's saying, hey, if somebody's hurting you, you can't defend yourself. I think it's basically just saying like, if you defend yourself, and in this regard, like this guy defended himself, if that's what happened, and killed the people who were hurting him, like he is marked in the same way where that doesn't mean someone can come kill him and seek revenge against him. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
Saying it doesn't matter that he killed him. So because he killed him, I'm saying if I fought force with force instead of acceptance, and the result was just that he died, why it doesn't matter because I killed him. So I'm like, am I supposed to just lay there and not fight fire with fire and just accept?
Well, so that's a very separate question. I like it though, because I want to answer it. I personally, for me, I think there's a difference between something that is good and bad and something that is right and wrong, right? I don't think it's wrong for self-defense that leads to death for someone who's trying to hurt you or harm you or kill you, or someone that you're responsible for, right? Is it good? No, right? It's not good. Just like war isn't good, but sometimes it's necessary.
Sure.
Killing someone in self-defense isn't good. Like that's just not a good thing, but it's justifiable, right? I think that's a difference.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because it's like it's not my intent to kill you. I'm just fighting back to save myself.
Not be killed. Exactly.
Yeah, and you just so happened to die, so I didn't die. I wasn't trying to kill you.
Yeah, I agree. Let's finish this out just really quickly. Then it says, Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, named him Seth, for she said, God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel, because Cain killed him. And to Seth was also born, and he called his name Enosh, and at that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. That's it.
I feel like that last line is really important, and I'm curious what exactly comes after. At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord kind of makes me feel like God was very present and like very active in these lives. I don't think he's going to not be active anymore, but it feels like now he's like, I'm not there with you in the same way. You have to like it sounds like now people are starting to worship God and starting to pray to God and etc. Almost like this is where the religion was born now.
That's what I think it's trying to say. I think because and how that looks could be anything at this point. They're just calling upon the name of the Lord God. Basically, it's like not necessarily Christianity. It's probably just all the ancient religions, all those things. People are starting to look for that presence, which they probably don't really have as much.
But it has to be looked for, where it's like it didn't seem like it had to be looked for before. It seemed like he was just there.
Yeah, the something I think about a lot, especially being part of the Catholic Church, is the difference between faith, religion, and then the organized part of the religion, right? Like where the people are create some hierarchy of power and, rituals and things that aren't necessarily explicitly stated in the Bible or anywhere, but like we just agree that this is the right way to do it or the appropriate way to do it. And so I wonder if that's kind of like maybe an extrapolation of what we can kind of expect going on, where it's like this is almost like when traditions start forming and when accepted ways of praying, right, or things like that.
Really smart, because I feel like the entire chapter is about, hey, Cain's offspring. Look what happened. Or I don't know. There's so much talk around not offspring. I'm sorry, offering. About the offerings of the two of them. So maybe now, if that is in reference to prayer or any type of worship, it's like, and at that time, people are like starting to create ways that they deem are the right ways to offer up to God.
James, you are a genius.
Thank you.
I didn't think about that like that.
I don't know if it's right, so don't. I could be like a heretic right now. I don't know.
Sense.
I think it is definitely more relevant to the chapter than what I said. Like I think it's just more like specific and like seems to wrap it up in a better way. But
well, to wrap it up in the best way, my famous media recommendations.
You did yours. You're
done.
I
have one more. I'm sorry. So the first is the song "Broski" by Joyner Lucas. Banger, love it. The second is the book. I think I recommended this the first time I was here. "Sapiens" by Yuval Harari. All his books are amazing, but in that, I think it was in that book, I can't remember if it was that one or one of his later books, he mentions something similar where he says, when in the Jewish tradition, people probably, he can kind of estimate, he's a historian, what the time period that people probably started following more written tradition, and when that became probably popular or commonplace in the Jewish tradition. And he's Jewish, so so he kind of brings that perspective. So that's kind of what I was thinking, where it's like, is this the time period, where it's like things started becoming more ritualized, more traditional, more whatever, and more like some form of an established religion, whatever that looked like at the time. Because obviously, at the time this was happening was not the time of, I don't know, actually, we should probably, maybe this is a whole other episode. The time that this was occurring in a historical way was not the time it was being written down. So how much time had passed between those two things? I don't know. So, if any, maybe it was contemporary at the time. I don't know. Are there any Bible scholars we could like bring on? That would be fascinating.
That would be very fascinating. But I also throw out there like the idea of like, I don't think this specifically actually happened like this. Like I don't think there's Cain and Abel specifically, but like, so when you said like how much time between when this actually happened to this, like I don't know if it actually happened in the way that it is told in the story.
Like how much of it was written to portray, to convey the morals and the religion itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm downplaying it in that way, but I don't mean to.
I wrote the book of very Genesis? Strongly agree. So, yeah. What? Sorry, what did you say, Eugene?
Who wrote the book of Genesis?
I believe it's said that Moses wrote all the Old Testament up to a certain point. So a lot of time obviously did pass between, Exodus and when Moses was around, and the Sermon on the Mount, and right, all in the burning bush and all these things, right, and thousands of years prior would these events would have taken place, or I don't know about thousands, but a long time prior. So yeah, so I don't know, like there's a lot of questions, and I think I'm learning a ton by talking to you guys about this. This has been amazing.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. This was a long one. This is a fun one. I liked it.
Yeah, I know Ken has to go to Enoch, and it's 2 hours away from you right now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right.
But, all right, boys. Yes, I was going to try to say goodbye, but in a way that I can fade out of. No, it's all right.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I said that.